Working in a coffee shop means you see the absolute worst of humanity before they have had their caffeine. We found 69 of the most unhinged, scientifically impossible, and completely absurd complaints real baristas have actually received. From customers threatening the police over ice cubes to screaming that their foam art looks depressed, these people are walking hazards. Let's hear them. 1. Imagine ordering an iced coffee and then throwing a massive tantrum because, wait for it, there is actual ice in the cup. This happens constantly. One guy left a scorched earth review accusing the barista of a grand conspiracy to steal liquid volume by hiding frozen water in his drink. He demanded the ice be removed, and when his cup was suddenly half empty, he called the cops for theft. Yes, the actual police. Apparently, basic physics is now a federal crime. 2. We all hate mornings, but one drive-thru customer took their pre-caffeine grumpiness to an unbelievable level. They filed a formal corporate complaint because the person working the window sounded, quote, aggressively happy. Seriously. This absolute ray of sunshine claimed the barista's cheerful voice was a personal attack that ruined their entire commute. They actually suggested the staff undergo mandatory training to sound more depressed and quiet before 10 in the morning to respect the misery of the general public. 3. There is a special place in the Service Industry Hall of Fame for the woman who returned her morning latte because the foam art did not speak to her soul. She did not say it was messy or ugly. Nope. She looked her barista dead in the eye and said the foam leaf looked clinically depressed. She demanded a remake with a happier, more optimistic fern. How do you even make steamed milk look cheerful? Draw a smiley face with a little foam thumbs up? 4. If you want to see a barista's soul leave their body, order a secret menu TikTok drink with a name like the Mermaid Galaxy Swirl. When one teenager tried this and the confused cashier asked for the actual recipe, the kid literally groaned in agony. She complained to the manager that it is the staff's legal obligation to memorize every viral internet trend. She stomped out without ordering, furious that these uneducated coffee peasants did not spend their entire shift scrolling social media. 5. You know those people who treat the cafe like their personal office? One guy marched up to the counter demanding the owner's home phone number because he was convinced the shop was spying on him through the free Wi-Fi. His proof? He started getting browser ads for espresso machines. When the poor shift supervisor tried to explain targeted advertising, the man refused to listen. He loudly accused the shop of installing microchips in his dark roast. Yes, microchipped liquid. Genius. 6. Let's talk about the absolute madness of the bone-dry cappuccino. For the uninitiated, that is a shot of espresso buried under a mountain of stiff milk foam with zero liquid. A woman ordered exactly this, picked up her cup, and immediately started screaming that it felt too light. The barista tried to gently explain that she had essentially ordered a cup of hot air bubbles, which do not weigh anything. Her response? She demanded a refund because she was being scammed out of gravity. 7. People usually get furious when their name is butchered on a cup, but one lady flipped the script entirely. She threw an absolute fit because the barista spelled her name perfectly. Why? Because part of her morning routine was posting the misspelled cup on Instagram to mock the staff for likes. Since they got it right, she felt robbed of her precious social media content. She literally forced them to write it on a new cup, but incorrectly this time so she could take a photo. 8. Main character syndrome is real, folks. A customer grabbed the best window seat in the house and then aggressively complained to the manager that the sun was glaring directly into her eyes. They lowered the blinds, but that was not enough justice for her. She filed a formal grievance stating that corporate management should have considered the trajectory of the solar system before constructing the building facing east. Because obviously, global urban planning should completely revolve around her sensitive retinas. 9. There is always that one tourist who orders a double espresso to sound fancy, pays for it, and then completely loses their mind when handed a tiny paper cup. One guy started shouting that he ordered a coffee, not a thimble-sized sample for a dollhouse. He honestly thought the barista was playing a cruel prank. He forced them to fill the rest of the tiny cup with hot water, took one sip, and violently gagged because now it tasted completely watered down. Shocker. 10. Sometimes the complaints are so anatomically absurd you just have to laugh. A grown man brought his toasted bagel back to the register, slammed it down, and declared the hole in the middle was entirely too large. He argued that the bakery was running a secret cost-cutting conspiracy to cheat him out of valuable bread real estate. He actually demanded a partial refund specifically to compensate for the missing center of the bagel. The manager just stared at him in stunned silence. 11. Picture this. A guy orders a piping hot black coffee, takes a massive gulp the second it touches his hands, and immediately burns his tongue. Instead of realizing his own terrible mistake, he files a corporate complaint demanding the shop invent a way to serve boiling hot coffee that is also somehow room temperature upon contact with human lips. He called it a massive safety hazard that the basic laws of thermodynamics were allowed to exist on the premises. 12. Customer service is all about building relationships, right? Well, one regular completely lost her mind when the barista cheerfully started making her usual order before she even reached the register. Instead of being grateful, she accused the poor employee of being a creepy stalker. She literally left a 1-star review claiming the staff was memorizing her dietary habits to steal her identity. Because knowing you like oat milk is definitely the first step to massive bank fraud. 13. You cannot make this up. A guy marches in, vehemently demands a soy milk latte because he is strictly vegan, and then storms right back up to the counter 3 minutes later. His complaint? The milk did not taste enough like real cow juice. The barista had to stand there and gently explain that beans do not lactate, and therefore soy milk will never taste exactly like a dairy cow. The man demanded a full refund for false advertising. 14. If you go to a coffee shop, you should expect to hear coffee being made. Not this lady. She sat directly next to the massive commercial espresso grinder and then completely went off on the manager. She claimed the loud grinding noise was disrupting her spiritual aura and asked them to only brew coffee manually with a silent mortar and pestle while she was in the building. Yes, she wanted them to smash beans by hand to protect her vibes. 15. Latte art is usually a fun little bonus, but one woman took it as a deeply personal attack. She stared into her mug, burst into actual tears, and accused the barista of intentionally pouring a Rosetta design that looked exactly like her ex-boyfriend's tribal arm tattoo. She demanded they throw it away and remake it with a completely emotionally neutral shape, like a square. How you pour a perfect square out of steamed milk is anyone's guess. 16. We usually hate slow drive-thrus, but one minivan driver submitted a wildly angry feedback form because the line moved way too efficiently. She claimed she specifically used the drive-thru to get away from her kids for 10 minutes to finish a juicy phone call. Because the staff was so fast, she got her mocha in 3 minutes flat and had to go back to parenting. She demanded they deliberately slow down their service to act as a free daycare escape. 17. Here is a brilliant financial scheme. A man walked in, grabbed a seat, and asked for a cup of plain hot water. When they handed it over, he whipped out his own grocery store tea bag, plopped it in, and then had the audacity to complain that the water tasted too much like coffee. He actually demanded they thoroughly scrub and sanitize the hot water spout just for his incredibly cheap do-it-yourself beverage. 18. Ice-shaped politics are incredibly intense for absolutely no reason. A customer ordered an iced caramel macchiato and then pitched an absolute fit because the ice cubes were square instead of crushed. They aggressively argued that square ice cubes have the wrong acoustic resonance when they hit the sides of the plastic cup, completely ruining the aesthetic vibe of their morning. Acoustic resonance for a plastic cup of frozen tap water. 19. It is called a coffee shop for a reason, but one very confused older gentleman simply refused to accept reality. He sat down, looked at the pastry case, and demanded a cheeseburger with medium-rare fries. When the cashier politely explained they only sell scones and muffins, he lost his temper, yelling that any respectable American establishment should serve beef at 9 in the morning. He stormed out, vowing to call the Better Business Bureau. 20. Tipping culture can be annoying, but this complaint is just pure paranoia. A woman wrote an essay-length email to the owner claiming the glass tip jar on the counter was actively emotionally manipulating her. She said the way the dollar bills were crumpled inside made the jar look desperate, and she felt legally bullied into leaving loose change. She requested the tip jar be moved to a completely hidden back room so her conscience could remain clear. 21. A highly stressed businessman stormed into a downtown cafe, waving his empty cup like a weapon. He had ordered a large decaf roast and was absolutely furious because it worked perfectly. He complained that the lack of caffeine made him dangerously sleepy during his afternoon budget meeting. He literally yelled at the shift lead, demanding to know why they did not sneak just a tiny bit of real caffeine into the decaf to keep him somewhat functional. 22. The concept of a secret menu completely broke one guy's brain. He walked up to the register, slammed a $20 bill down, and loudly demanded to see the hidden menu. The barista explained, it is just a slang term for custom internet drinks and not a real physical object. The guy refused to believe it. He started trying to look behind the cash register, accusing the staff of hoarding a magical leather-bound book of forbidden sugary frappuccinos. 23. Most people want fresh food, but one absolute psycho brought a blueberry muffin back to the counter because it was too soft and moist. He angrily explained that he needed a rock-hard stale pastry, so it would not instantly dissolve when he aggressively dunked it into his boiling hot black coffee. He seriously demanded the bakery staff start leaving a separate batch of muffins out on the counter overnight, completely uncovered, just to satisfy his chaotic breakfast rituals. 24. Sometimes the customer is just looking for a fight. A lady ordered a plain black coffee and gave the name Anne. The barista wrote the letters ANN on the cup. The woman grabbed it, pulled out a thick red marker from her purse, and dramatically circled the name. She complained to the entire store that her name was actually spelled with an E at the end, and called the barista illiterate for not magically reading her mind. 25. Local coffee shops love displaying community artwork, but one local hipster took this way too seriously. He left a scathing review complaining that the abstract paintings on the wall did not match the specific flavor profile of his pour-over Ethiopian roast. He insisted the vibrant colors of the canvas clashed violently with the earthy notes of his drink, completely ruining his palate. He wanted the manager to rotate the art collection daily based on the coffee bean menu. 26. Seasonal drinks exist for a reason, but try explaining the concept of autumn to an angry customer in the dead of July. A woman completely lost her mind when she was told the pumpkin spice syrup was not in stock during a massive summer heatwave. She accused the cafe of hoarding the syrup in the back room out of pure spite and demanded they go check the basement for hidden pumpkins. In the middle of summer. 27. Here is a complaint that defies all human logic. A college student sent a heavily worded email to management complaining that the velvet armchairs in the corner were way too comfortable. His argument? He sat down to study for a massive biology final, got too incredibly cozy, and ended up falling asleep for 4 hours. He actually blamed the coffee shop's premium furniture budget for his terrible grades and demanded they install hard wooden benches. 28. You have to love the wildly superstitious customers. One regular absolutely refused to drink anything made on the left espresso group head because she claimed it was haunted by bad energy. One day, the right side broke down, so the barista used the left side. The woman took one sip, spat it back into the cup, and shrieked that her latte tasted like a Victorian ghost. She genuinely demanded the owner hire a priest to cleanse the espresso machine. 29. Drive-through etiquette is apparently highly contested. A passenger in a car handed her credit card across the driver to pay for her frappe. When the barista handed the finished drink back to the driver, the passenger completely lost her mind. She filed a massive corporate grievance stating the barista should have left the building, walked entirely around the vehicle in the rain, and hand-delivered the cup directly to her window out of sheer respect for the cardholder. 30. We all need breaks, but one customer felt personally betrayed by a barista eating lunch in the lobby. The employee was quietly reading a fantasy novel. The customer marched up to the manager and demanded the barista be fired. Why? Because reading about dragons meant the employee had their head in the clouds and could no longer be trusted to execute the precise mathematical measurements required for a vanilla latte. Pure, unfiltered insanity. 31. Music sets the mood, but one guy felt the indie folk playlist was an active threat to his masculinity. He marched up to the counter, flexing his arms, and complained that the acoustic guitar music was lowering his testosterone levels before his gym workout. He demanded the barista switch the store audio to heavy death metal immediately, or he would be forced to take his business to a more alpha male-friendly bakery. 32. Coffee shops with dog-friendly patios are amazing, unless you are this particular woman. She brought her toddler to the patio and then complained to the manager that a stranger's golden retriever was ignoring her child. She felt the dog was being incredibly rude and elitist by napping instead of entertaining her kid. She actually suggested the cafe enforce a rule where all dogs must perform tricks for paying customers. 33. Yes, you heard that right. A health nut asked for a cup of filtered tap water, took a sip, and immediately spit it back out in pure disgust. Their completely serious complaint was that the water tasted entirely too wet and lacked the crispy mineral bite of expensive mountain spring water. They accused the shop of serving subpar, excessively hydrated water and threatened to report them to the health department for serving overly liquid liquids. 34. We all know certain massive coffee chains use weird Italian words for their cup sizes, but one guy went to an independent mom-and-pop shop, ordered a tall coffee, and got incredibly angry when they handed him a large. He yelled that tall means small in the coffee world. When the owner explained that in the English dictionary, tall actually means big, the guy accused them of committing linguistic terrorism and refusing to honor corporate coffee culture. 35. Usually, speed is a great thing in the morning rush. Not for this guy. He ordered a complex blended caramel drink, and the highly trained barista whipped it up in under a minute. Instead of saying thank you, the customer accused the barista of rushing the creative process. He claimed that because the drink was made so quickly, it lacked love and artisan craftsmanship. He literally forced them to remake it, but slower, so he could feel valued. 36. Can you imagine leaving a negative internet review because your black coffee tasted too much like coffee? One guy did exactly that. He complained that the dark roast was entirely too aggressive on his palate and demanded the shop invent a new brew that tasted like absolutely nothing. He literally wanted hot brown water that possessed zero bean flavor. The manager was too stunned to even offer a refund. 37. Unstable cafe tables are annoying, but this reaction belongs in an asylum. A guy sat down, realized his small circular table had a slight wobble and completely exploded. The barista offered to fix it by sliding a folded cardboard sleeve under the leg. The man refused, claiming that a temporary napkin fix would drastically disrupt the feng shui of his crypto trading session. He genuinely demanded they call a licensed structural engineer immediately to level the floorboards. 38. There is zero logic to this next one. A teenager ordered a cold brew and then threw an absolute fit because it was not steaming hot. When the cashier pointed out the word cold is literally the first half of the drink's name, the kid argued that it was just a brand name, like Cool Ranch Doritos. He demanded they put the plastic cup in the microwave, which obviously went terribly wrong. 39. We have all seen people camp out at cafe tables, but this guy treated the shop like his own personal real estate. He submitted a formal complaint, because the store changed their bathroom code. He stated that since he bought a medium drip coffee 3 weeks ago, he was a shareholder in the company and had a legal right to unlimited, unrestricted bathroom access for the rest of his natural life. 40. This complaint belongs in a psychology textbook. A very intense woman ordered a flat white, grabbed the paper cup, and immediately started yelling about the geometry of the container. She claimed it was entirely misleading to serve a flat white in a round cup. She actually expected the drink to be served on a completely flat plate, and accused the staff of false advertising because circles are mathematically not flat. 41. Wooden stir sticks are a massive problem for some people. A businessman grabbed a handful, furiously stirred his Americano, and then demanded to speak to the owner. His major grievance was that the wooden stick made his drink taste faintly like wood. He suggested the shop illegally harvest endangered ivory or invent flavorless titanium stirrers, just so his morning routine would not be ruined by the taste of a literal tree. 42. Some folks take the concept of a dirty chai way too literally. A health enthusiast ordered one and was deeply offended when they found out the dirty part just means adding a shot of espresso. This guy was actively trying to build his immune system and filed a complaint because the barista refused to go outside, scoop up actual soil from the parking lot planter, and mix it into his beverage. 43. You really cannot win with diet culture. A very loud customer specifically ordered a vegan chocolate chip cookie, confirmed 3 times that it was vegan, and took a massive bite. Then she marched back to complain that it did not contain real dairy butter. The cashier gently reminded her that butter comes from cows, which violates the vegan rules she literally just demanded. Her response was that they should try harder to make cows vegan. 44. Imagine being furious over the laws of physics. A lady bought a massive hot mocha, piled it high with whipped cream, and walked to her car. 10 minutes later, she stormed back inside, demanding a refund because the cold whipped cream melted into the boiling hot liquid. She accused the barista of using defective, low-grade cream that lacked the structural integrity to withstand 200-degree temperatures. 45. Security paranoia reached new heights with this guy. He refused to give his name for an order, citing severe privacy concerns. The barista just wrote a smiley face on the cup to identify it. When they called out the drink, the man lost his mind, claiming the smiley face was a secret government code used to track his location. He snatched the cup and ran out the door, looking over his shoulder. 46. Sometimes the ambiance is just too authentic. A woman sat down with her laptop and within 5 minutes, marched up to the counter practically gagging. She left a written complaint stating that the coffee shop smelled way too aggressively like roasted coffee. She demanded they spray tropical air freshener every 15 minutes to mask the offensive odor of the exact product they manufacture and sell to survive. 47. Left-handed people are a menace to society, apparently. A superstitious older gentleman refused to accept his cappuccino because the barista handed it to him using their left hand. He firmly believed this cursed the beverage with demonic energy. He forced the poor employee to throw the perfectly good drink in the trash, wash their hands, and slide a new one across the counter exclusively using their right index finger. 48. A drive-through speaker box is not known for high audio quality, but one wife found it completely unacceptable for a different reason. She filed a corporate grievance claiming the male barista taking her order had a voice that was way too seductive. She said his deep, gravelly tone was incredibly inappropriate for a Tuesday morning and demanded the store only hire people with high-pitched, annoying voices to protect the sanctity of her marriage. 49. A local influencer threw a massive tantrum, not about the coffee, but about the bathroom mirrors. She stormed out of the restroom and yelled at the shift supervisor that the overhead fluorescent lighting made her look at least 5 years older. She accused the shop of committing visual slander against her personal brand. She actually demanded they immediately hire an electrician to install professional beauty ring lights in all the stalls so her selfies would remain absolutely flawless. 50. Bartering is alive and well in the minds of crazy people. A guy saw a sign advertising fair trade coffee and completely misunderstood the assignment. He walked up to the register, ordered a large latte, and tried to pay by handing the cashier a slightly used pair of sunglasses. When they asked for real money, he screamed that they were violating international fair trade agreements by refusing his bartered goods. 51. Getting angry about free stuff is a special kind of entitlement. A college student asked for a free cup of tap water. The barista handed it over with a smile. The student took a sip, grimaced, and loudly complained that it was not premium sparkling water. They honestly expected the shop to give away expensive carbonated mineral water for $0 and called the staff cheap for serving flat municipal tap. 52. Half and half is just a mix of milk and cream, but to one amateur scientist, it was a massive math problem. He demanded the barista pour exactly 50% milk and 50% cream down to the exact millimeter. When the barista eyeballed it like a normal human, the guy pulled out a tiny plastic measuring ruler to prove the ratio was off by a fraction. He demanded they start over immediately. 53. You have to admire the absolute delusion here. A woman grabbed a window seat to people watch, but then realized people on the sidewalk could look back at her. She threw a massive tantrum, complaining that the glass was completely transparent. She suggested management should install one-way police interrogation mirrors so she could judge pedestrians in complete secrecy without them making eye contact with her while she chewed her croissant. 54. Digital payment systems are stressing people out. A boomer paid with a credit card, and the tablet automatically flipped around to ask for a tip. He did not just hit the skip button. No, he wrote an entire essay online claiming the glowing digital screen looked at him with hostile, aggressive energy. He said the tablet was bullying him financially and demanded the store return to vintage mechanical cash registers. 55. Imagine complaining that your paper loyalty punch card got ruined because you decided to walk through a massive thunderstorm. A guy showed up soaking wet with a disintegrated pile of paper mush in his hands. He demanded a free drink, claiming the shop was responsible for weatherproofing their loyalty cards. He suggested they switch to laser-engraved titanium cards so his rewards would survive absolute natural disasters. 56. Condiment stations are lawless wastelands. A guy used up the entire shaker of cinnamon on his single macchiato, leaving a mountain of powder on the counter. When a staff member politely asked him to be careful, he filed a formal complaint. His argument was that since the cinnamon was technically free, he had the legal right to bathe in it if he wanted to, and the staff was infringing on his civil liberties. 57. Getting exactly what you ordered is a nightmare for some. A customer ordered a massive bucket of iced tea with absolutely no ice. The barista filled it to the brim with warm, room-temperature tea. The customer took a massive chug and immediately spat it across the patio. They were absolutely furious that the tea was not freezing cold, despite specifically banning the one ingredient designed to make things freezing cold. 58. Let us talk about the guy who was deeply offended by a pour-over kettle. Those kettles have long, thin spouts for precise pouring. This customer watched the barista make his coffee and then started yelling that he felt demeaned. He claimed the kettle looked exactly like a gardening tool, and he felt like the barista was watering him like a cheap houseplant. He demanded his coffee be poured from a normal, masculine jug. 59. Decaf drinkers are a very specific breed of paranoid. A lady ordered a decaffeinated Americano, stared intensely at the black liquid, and refused to drink it. Her complaint? The coffee looked way too dark to be decaf. She genuinely believed that removing the caffeine should magically turn the liquid completely clear, like water. The manager had to explain that bean color and chemical stimulants are not the exact same thing. 60. Wi-Fi is a privilege, but to one remote worker, it was a massive human rights violation. He marched up to the counter, rubbing his hand and complaining that the store's guest password was entirely too long. He claimed typing out 14 characters gave him a severe thumb cramp and demanded the shop change the password to a single number so he would not have to exert physical labor to check his emails. 61. We all know espresso steam wands puff out hot air. One furious woman leaned completely over the counter right as the barista was steaming milk, getting blasted in the face with hot vapor. She immediately threatened to sue the company for ruining her expensive salon blowout. She demanded the shop pay her $200 hair salon bill because they failed to warn her that boiling water produces steam. 62. Have you ever seen someone get mad at ambient room temperature? A guy ordered a massive iced frap on a 90-degree summer day, took it out to the sunny patio, and complained 10 minutes later. He was deeply offended that condensation was forming on the outside of the plastic cup. He accused the shop of selling him a leaky, defective cup and demanded a refund because his hand got slightly wet. 63. The sheer audacity of this next guy is staggering. He sat down, drank an entire large dark roast coffee, and stayed for 6 hours working on his screenplay. As he was packing up, he asked for a complete refund. His reason? The caffeine wore off exactly when he finally needed to start typing. He claimed the coffee was defective because it did not keep him aggressively wired for a full business day. 64. Cross-contamination is a real issue for allergies, but this lady took it to another dimension. She ordered a gluten-free muffin that was safely wrapped in plastic. However, she noticed it was sitting on the pastry rack next to a regular, gluten-filled bagel. She refused to buy it, claiming the bagel was radiating airborne gluten particles that had scientifically penetrated the plastic wrapper and poisoned her muffin. 65. Car cup holders are basically universal, right? Not according to one angry commuter. He returned a perfectly good latte because the corrugated cardboard heat sleeve on the cup did not perfectly match the exact diameter of his vintage car's cup holder. He actually demanded the barista custom cut and tape a new sleeve together so his drink would not jiggle when he took sharp turns on the highway. 66. A teenager walked in, pointed at the pastry case, and demanded a fresh blueberry muffin. When they handed it over, she stood there staring blankly. She then requested that the barista individually peel the skin off every single blueberry inside the baked muffin because she did not like the texture. When the barista politely declined to perform microsurgery on baked goods, she left a review calling the staff lazy. 67. Getting mad at uniform colors is definitely a choice. A high-fashion customer walked into a local cafe and immediately complained to the shift supervisor about the staff's dark green aprons. She argued that the earthy green color aggressively clashed with her bright pink designer handbag, completely ruining the aesthetic of her morning vlog. She actually asked them to switch to neutral black aprons while she filmed her coffee routine. 68. One extremely tired mother ordered a shot of espresso to go. She also had a tiny toothless senior chihuahua in her purse. She asked the barista to break a biscotti into microscopic pieces for her dog. When the barista said the cookie was entirely too hard to break by hand, the woman literally asked the employee to chew the cookie up and spit it into a napkin for her dog. 69. We end with a classic case of Halloween madness. A guy ordered a red-eye coffee on October 31st. He chugged the whole thing and then stared at himself in the bathroom mirror. He stormed out furious, complaining that the drink was a scam because his actual eyeballs did not turn a demonic shade of red. He honestly thought the coffee was a magical potion designed specifically for his vampire costume. We just went through 69 walking disasters, which brings up a serious question. Should coffee shops start enforcing a mandatory basic intelligence test before letting people order? Tell me what single question you would put on that test in the comments. If you survived this madness, hit like and subscribe for more.